Hi, my name is Nathan St. Andre. I am here to do my very first recorded video tutorial of an edited image of mine. We're going to start with 3 base images here, and we are going to bring it all together and we're going to pull it out and turn it into a great image, hopefully. This was taken yesterday morning. I was expecting a greater sunrise, and for about 3 minutes we had great color, and then it all disappeared. So I ended up walking back to a usual spot of mine and taking this quick shot, and then we're going to pull it all together and see how it looks. So I break it up into the ground and the sky. So this is going to be what I'm going to edit for the sky. This is what I'll be editing for the ground. And I'm going to first edit the ground, and then I'm going to edit the sky. And I'm not going to be super concerned with the sky so much. And so it's going to be the low end of my priority of what I'm going to do with this image. I'm going to start here fixing the white balance. I don't know what's going on here. Okay, that looks about right. We're going to up the contrast. Let's move it back a little to this way so it's not so overpowering. That looks more natural now. This is kind of the color of the soil in the area. We're going to reduce the highlights to remove a little bit of the glow along the edges of the mountain here. But if we push our highlights too low, you start looking flat all around within the image. So I'm not going to do much of that. Up the shadows just by a little bit so the ground's a little bit brighter. Up the whites, move the darks down, and that adds some natural contrast. Up the clarity. Clarity will add a pop to a lot of the ground around the area, and I like the results it gives in the image. These are all global adjustments, and so everything that I'm doing here affects the entire image. We're going to go down to the dehaze tool, and I'm just going to up it up a little. Okay, I'm okay with that. Now I'm going to go back up to the sharpening. The way in which I understand how you do sharpening, you come here to the sharpening slider, you move it up until it starts looking bad, and for me that's starting to look bad, and then you move it back a little, and then you can play with the detail, and that'll add a little bit of pop to your image. Just a little. Small, minor adjustments. I'm going to up the vibrance a little, kind of make these little green plants pop a little bit more. What is that? The big white rock. I might remove that rock. Okay, so that's the ground. So let's go over to the sky. Yeah, which sky is better? This sky is better. Okay. I'm going to only focus on the sky now. So the sky seems, I always up the contrast. It always makes things easier. Okay. I'm going to reduce the highlights, and so I can see details in here. I'm going to shift this a little bit closer to the blue spectrum, or cooler spectrum. That's starting to look wrong. It was a pretty warm sunrise, so I'm going to leave it right around there. So I'm going to up the shadows. Not that it's really super important, but it does make for combining the photos easier. I'm going to move the whites up a little, but not too high. So right now I don't have anything blown out. If I move the whites up too high, it's going to start touching that. And so now you can start to see here in the sky. Here, let me turn that on. You can see where I'm starting to lose detail and it's just turning to pure white. Bump that back just a little. A little bit of white doesn't hurt. I'm going to up the clarity just a little. Okay, minor touch there. I'm going to do the dehaze. Brings out a little bit more of those clouds. Okay, you see how I have all this noise up here in the sky? I do not want that. So I'm going to go to the noise reduction. Move down on the noise reduction, and so my sky is smoother now. Okay. And while I'm at it, I'm going to take a quick second to look to see if I see any major dust specks or things like that that I don't like. Oh, right there. Spend a second looking around. Okay, that looks good. There's one final trick that you can do though to deal with dust specks. It's called the visualize spots here in the bottom center. You push that and you can adjust it from here, and it can help you see things, and so you can go back and zoom in, fly around. It's a little bit harder on your computer, at least mine anyways. I don't see anything. So what it looks like when you have a speck that it turns into like a really prominent circle, and so it really helps you identify where a speck is. It looks kind of like that right there. So that might actually be something right there. So I'm just going to kill that. Turn it off. Gone. Don't have to worry about it anymore. Okay, so now I have a sky that I like, and I have a ground that I like. I'm going to up the vibrance a little. Maybe we can pull out a few more of those colors there in the sky. Maybe not that much. Okay. So I have a sky to work with, and I have a ground to work with. So let's pull these together and pull them together in Photoshop. So I'm going to select both images, right-click, edit in, open as layers in Photoshop. This will take a second, at least for my computer anyways. I'm not working on blazing fast speeds anymore. So when it comes to doing a sky replacement or a sky blend like I'm doing now, there are a couple ways you can do it. There are actually a lot of different ways you can do it. And so I'm going to try a couple different ones to see which one works best, because I don't know for sure every single time I come to an image which method will work best in order to pull the sky in with the ground. And so I'm going to try a couple. Okay, we're going to work with a white background, but not at the moment. So we're going to go back to default here. So let's move my ground below, sky to the top. I always try to work in that manner because it makes for easy, I guess, mindset and how I see the image. So I always work with the sky, or always have the sky up top and the ground on bottom in my layers. The sky up top, ground on the bottom. And that helps keep level of importance within your image going on as well. And if you're only pulling a small tiny bit from one image, always have that image to be the very top, because it'll be the easiest thing to work with in the end. Okay, so let's start with an easy one. So let's just select the sky using my quick select tool, and then we can do select and mask. Okay, so we have a little bit of a glow, and probably what ended up happening here is that when I took the image, the thing moved a little. So let's see how it moved. So let's reverse here and cancel this and deselect. So I'm going to go like this, edit, auto align layers, auto. That might be able to take care of the weird. Yeah, you see how the image shifted just a smidget? Okay. We'll crop later. I won't crop right now. Let's go back here. Select and mask. That looks better. Not nearly as much of a strong line. So let's zoom in. I always try to do this 100%. Heck, I'm even at 200% now. And so I feather just a little, and then I shift the edge. See if that's pushing it too far. Yeah, this one's not going to be a very easy blend, is it? Okay. It is not going to be an easy blend. So let me try something else. We're going to cancel that. Oh, nope. Don't want to do that. Control deselect. So let's do... actually, let's crop it. Let's crop this image. Okay, cropping there. That looks good, since I'm not super concerned with this image at the moment. Let's crop it a little. Oh, hey. Undo. Let's do my crop tool. Here, let me click off. Come back to that again. And there's still a little bit right there. Okay. Okay, we'll work with this. Couple ways we can go about doing this next step. So let's do a gradient tool, and let's see if a gradient blend will work. It's not bad. Frankly, you can get away with that one pretty well. So let's actually then take the paintbrush tool. I have opacity. Let's buff that up just a little bit higher, but not much. And then let's do paint in the sky a little bit more. And then switch it and paint out the sky that's overlaying onto the ground a little bit more. Okay, boom, you have a combined ground and sky. Not super technical. It's just a matter of what will work for the image. Let me just brighten up that area. That looks pretty good. So, am I done with the image? No. Mind you, I could probably get away with this image just fine, but I'm going to work with it a little. So I'm going to start playing using the levels and contrast curves and brightness contrast. These are kind of the three things I use the most. So let's see if playing with these will add anything I like to the image. Okay, I like that better. But I might, here, let me actually do this. Do a little bit of a curves, brighten up the ground just a little. And so what I'm going to do, since I have a mask on this now, I'm going to Control I, invert it, and then I'm going to use a brush to try to bring it back in a little. I could probably go a little higher than that. And I have to be off black, so it works. And I'm going to really actually focus here on this, on the riverbed. And what you can do is you brighten up the riverbed just subtly. And you go back over a couple times. And so it gets brightened more than the rest of the image does. And can you see the difference here? Now that creates an automatically slightly brighter section, and it turns into a leading line. And you may not realize it, but that's actually guiding you back into the image. And so it's actually brush out a little bit of what I added over here. And so that riverbed becomes brighter and draws your eye quicker to it. And so it allows for a nice S-curve to lead you back up to the mountain. And let me brighten up this mountain a little bit more. I think it deserves a little bit more brightness here, so it draws your attention to it. Particularly that white band. That white band's going to draw a lot of attention to itself. I might be able to work with these clouds a little, so I'm just going to play around and see what I can do with these clouds in some fashion. I don't like that. Let me focus on maybe doing some levels. Maybe that. Here, then what we're going to do, I'm going to get rid of that mask because it's a global mask, but I'm going to go like this. I'm going to do a select tool, select the sky, and then I'm going to mask this, and so it doesn't affect the ground anymore. And so we can see kind of the before and after the sky. And so now we have a pulled together image. And so I always edit my photos towards the idea I'm going to print them. And so I always switch it to custom white and then get an idea of how this is going to look printed. And this will give you an idea because the white actually causes the other whites within the image to look brighter and the darks to look a little darker. And so if your image is too dark, it will not look good with the white as a backdrop. Because if I switch it to black, it always looks amazing when you do it on black, right? But in reality, if you're editing towards a final print, you want to edit on white. And this feels too bright here, so I'm going to bring up this, and I might be able to reduce the brightness, but I'm going to still, like I did beforehand, I'm going to invert that, and then I'm going to use a paintbrush tool, and I'm going to just lightly paint in this area and reduce the brightness by a smidget because it seems too overpowering. See how I'm starting to bring back just a little to the sky right there, and I can do a little bit over here. And you can see the difference. Before, after, before, after. And now that sky feels a little bit more balanced all around. Okay, so we have a pretty well finished photo from this other morning. It only took a few minutes, but I used a series of levels and curves and just selected what I wanted to in order to bring out the image. And so what I usually will do at this point, I can go like this. I can do whatever, layer, new, layer, make it a gray, turn it to maybe like a soft light, and up this size. And I'm going to paint a little bit of a vignette into here. I'll probably... Actually, I think I'm just going to export this back to Lightroom. So we're going to File, Save. Okay, cool. Now we have it back here in Lightroom. Still got a last few things to do. I'm going to just fly around it real quick, double check and make sure there's nothing else in here that I want to fix before I call this final. Okay, so because I am using a super wide angle lens, I can see a little bit of a road over here, but I think that's going to be okay. I'm not going to worry too much about that. The ground detail looks pretty good to me. Might be able to sharpen it just a little bit more, maybe. That's okay. So this is where I start adding the final little vignette. And so I usually don't go above like 10 at all. And so it needs to be so subtle that it causes the viewer to just generally focus right here on the center and not realize that they're being forced there by the slight vignette. So the idea of editing your image, you're wanting to force a viewer to view what you want them to view. And so I want them to notice this small channel and the mountain. And I did that by brightening up the small channel just slightly, and I brightened up the mountain, in particular these bands, so what I can probably do to actually make that a little bit more apparent. I can come up here and I can reduce that to 0. Let's now use a smidget of clarity and whites. I have a small amount that I can add right up here. Still thinking. Okay. So we can delete that and see how it affected the image. So, how much is it right there? Maybe you can go like this, paint a little bit more on over here, paint a little bit more on over here. Okay, so delete. You can see how it faded a little bit. Bring that back, and so now the mountain looks a little bit more prominent. And so now I have this gentle leading line that brings you all the way to the mountain with an interesting sky, vignetted so it forces you to view right here in the center where I want you to. And there we go. We have a finished image. Let me know what you think, and let me know if you have any questions about anything that you saw. Thank you so much for spending the time watching. Bye.